You are tuned in to the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across the Radio Maria Radio Network, so glad to have all of you Radio Maria listeners tuned in as well. This is Faith and Sport, the most popular sports radio program on Catholic radio, where we feature a little faith, a little sport, and your host, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Thank you, folks. Oh, this is fantastic to be in this chair. Folks, thank you for joining us. However, wherever, whenever you're listening to us, we want to thank the people at Radio Maria, co-production of the folks here at Carolina Catholic Radio. This is Faith and Sport, where we apply our faith to all aspects of sports. So welcome to the show. Here's what we're going to do. In a couple minutes, I'm going to bring on Carlos Herrera. We're going to discuss all things ethics and sports, including our hit or miss with Carlos. We're going to do weekend headlines. They are raucous today.
Yeah, they're worked up.
I love it. I hope that's pure excitement for what we're going to talk about.
I think it is. They're always excited when they get to hear FS Man.
I know, I am FS Man. Folks, also, after the conversation with Carlos, we're going to do weekend headlines. Then we're going to take a little break. And then after the break, we're going to talk about, just for a moment, just how wrong sports predictions can be. So you should be at the edge of your seat on that one. And then we have our special guests, Tom and Marianne Van Buskirk. They are the founders and directors of Positive Sport Coaching. You can check that out at positivesportcoaching.org. So make sure you check out their website so you can see what they're all about. And Tom and Marianne will be joining us after the break. And then, like most days of the show, we're going to do our quick Q&A with Dr. A. Before we bring Carlos on, brother, how you doing? But I know as much as anything, as a sports fan, you're in a good mood. The Braves are in the playoffs.
That's right.
The NC State Wolfpack are undefeated, and it's undefeated?
No, actually, they've lost
one game. But they won this past weekend.
That's right.
And then your great Washington
football team.
Yeah.
Great win, too.
Now, are you pretty good about being politically correct and not saying the Washington Redskins to anybody?
Yes, to me they're still the Redskins, but everybody, we have to call them now the Washington football team.
That's right. In fact, I thought it was this year that they were going to make that change.
I thought so too, but they're waiting another year. But if you look at their football games, you can see people sitting out there in the stands with their Redskin hats and gear on.
Yeah, of course. They're going to have that for a long time. In fact, people are going to hold on to those, Chris, because they probably think they're going to be worth a lot of money someday.
They probably will. They'll be collector's items. Remember back when they were the Washington Redskins?
But you know what's funny is, I know so little about, say, baseball cards and football cards and all that. But the one thing I do know is that it's not so much that the person that's on the card, it was so great. It's just that there's not very many of those particular cards out there.
That's right.
So if you think your Redskins hat's going to be worthwhile or worth something, you have to figure that about 78 million other people own that same hat. So,
right.
It's not going to be worth anything. Folks, thank you for joining us today here on Carolina Catholic Radio. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Virtually every day of the week, I'm at Wingate University. I teach exercise science. I teach anatomy and physiology, exercise physiology, sports nutrition, stuff like that. And then one day a week, I jump into a phone booth. I put on my cape, my mask, and I have a little banner on my chest that says FS Man.
That's right.
And so I'm here with Chris. Buddy, thank you for doing what you do, not only for this show, but for Carolina Catholic Radio, because you do a lot.
Yes, I do. I'm a one-man production team.
I love that, brother. And thank you for everything you do, because I've told everybody that thinks about doing a show, I go, make sure you have a studio and a producer.
That's right.
Because I've done this in the confines of my office, which has no windows, and boy, that can be a long hour. Because even if you're there, even if you're at home or you're here, and we're doing the show, we can't see each other, it just kind of loses energy.
Right.
It is different, isn't it, with the people that do the show?
That's right.
And anyway, I'm glad all you do for us, brother. And
that's right, because you're kind of a one-man production team for Faith and Sport, because you have to write out the whole show and
I do, yeah.
book your own guests. I mean, you don't have an assistant like most big-time show producers do.
But you should see the contract I signed with Carolina Catholic Radio, brother. It makes it all worth it.
That's right.
I mean, it comes out close to $1 a day.
That's right.
All right, folks, listen, I mentioned Carlos Herrera. He's on just about each and every week with us. Today's one of those weeks. As always, we do what's called the hit and miss. We're going to start our conversation with that. But first, let's bring Carlos on and see how he's doing. Lolitos!
Lolitos!
Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah,
Dr. Acquaviva.
This is great, man. Carlos is. I know I asked you this actually fairly often, but this year, with kind of COVID over as far as, limited fans in the stands and all that. Now, you tell me, like, for the Washington football team, were there limited seating last year? Was there limited seating?
There was limited seating, and it wasn't until the end of the year that I think they started to either let some people come. I think it was the playoff game or something like that. But there was limited seating. And by the way, in terms of being sort of woke, I like to call them the team formerly known as the Washington Redskins. So that way, I hit both, right?
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
woke.
That's right.
I don't refer to them as that, but I like to refer to them to their former name.
That's right. Now, I want to say the name that people have been kind of like leaking out there was they were thinking about or actually going to call the team the Washington Redhawks. Is that still a possibility?
I heard Red Wolves, which is a reference to what I think it's the black Air Force crew, and I think it was World War II, or the Red Tails. No, that
Red
was the
Tails.
Red
That's
Tails.
right. It's the Red Tails.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been.
Who knows? Who knows which way they're going with it?
Oh,
I have no idea.
You honestly have no idea. I think that's interesting. I would think that's kind of like leaked out because one of the things that I've kind of seen and one of the advantages of the internet, when people want to change something, it seems that they will like leak it on the internet and then see what the response is on social media. And then that gives them the gauge on whether they should move forward with that.
They very well may be doing that because they've narrowed it down to what they said was 3 names and possibly another.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably their out, right?
Yeah, they were leaning
These
towards
3 names.
the Washington Warriors, but then they decided not to go with that one because they wanted to get away from the Native American.
Native American
thing.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Red's in the name because if you think about it, in your mind, Carlos, if you start to say the Washington Redskins, but the name is the Red Hawks or the Red, what is the World War II Black Flyers name again?
Red Tails.
Red Tails.
Red Tails.
Then you can literally, because our mind thinks about, moves about 4 times as fast as we can speak. So as you're saying Red Skins, you could actually go into Red Tails. Right? No, I mean that. That's why it's a good idea to have the. I mean that, Carlos. I think Carlos is laughing at me right now, Chris. But it's true, right?
I'm sure they have hired a marketing company that has spent, they paid millions of dollars to analyze all this. They probably have taken your point into consideration.
That's right. Very good. So listen, folks, you're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. Thank you for joining us here on Faith in Sport today, however, wherever, whenever you're listening to us. And on the phone with us is Carlos Herrera. He is a certified soccer coach and former youth minister up in the D.C. area. Los, you have a great hit or miss for us. Let's get started in that conversation. Which is it?
Well, I don't know if it's great, but it's certainly an important topic and a relevant topic at the moment. This is a myth, and it has to do with coaches in the particular league, the National Women's Soccer League, the NWSL, that have made the news this last week or two. In particular, the most prominent and well-known person is Coach Paul Riley. He's an English coach. He's coached several teams. I think it's the Portland Thorns. He's coached the Philadelphia Independence, most recently coach/manager of the North Carolina Courage. He was also, I believe, a U.S. coach at one point, too, for the U.S. women's team. Anyway, he was accused of and has been let go because he was accused of sexual coercion and possible sexual abuse related to his players. And in the context of having drinks with them and then after drinks inviting 1 or 2 players to his room. Also, there's kind of a report that he asked 2 female players in his room that if they kissed in front of him, they would be able to get out of difficult practice activities the following, week.
Yeah.
And then one has been accused of that he had sexual relations with one of the players, and then a couple other incidences where he invited 1 player or 2 players to see game video in his hotel room.
Now, Carlos, which one is the most problematic? Him making these propositions to these players, the league not responding to this quicker, the fact that the general counsel for the team or for the league, and in particular who is she, the general manager of this particular team?
There are several issues, and sort of to jump in, cut you off, but I think you're referencing Lisa Baird, who is the commissioner for the NWSL, resigned because of this particular issue, as well as the general counsel, who is Lisa Levine, two women who resigned, in particular because I think the allegations with Paul Riley had come up previously when he was coaching previous teams. They had a investigation of which I think was inconsequential. I'm not sure. I haven't read about what the actual details were, but clearly it wasn't enough. And so this behavior has continued through several different teams. And you asked me what behavior is the worst. Obviously in an organization, there's going to be rules and regulations about fraternizing or how you engage with players. Yeah. Right? If they're adults, like if he invited a player to have sex, obviously he's in a role of authority. Right? Who knows if that's related to playing time or whatever, but it's not appropriate. They're adults, so there's that component that they're free to choose, right? But he has undue influence, right? The other parts that's not good. The other parts of behavior related to either drinking with players on weekends or at night after games, or bringing them into the rooms. That's when you start inviting players of the opposite sex into your room late at night, and you specifically say, if you guys kiss, you guys will get out of practice. That's behavior that should not be tolerated, along with inviting players at night to review video. One player or two players. It's odd, and it's definitely problematic and should have been dealt with much sooner.
Yeah, of course, and that's really the issue. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. We're talking with Carlos Herrera, periodic, in fact, frequent special guest, and we're talking about the issue that has come to light at least a little further in the last few days on the National Women's Soccer League, the Women's Professional Soccer League. The coach there is Paul Riley. Is that his first name, Carlos?
Yes.
Okay.
Paul Riley.
And there's been numerous allegations, and apparently it's come to light that there's been allegations, at least periodically, maybe even frequently, over the years that he's been involved in women's soccer. But what you're saying is, and you haven't necessarily pointed a finger at any one thing, but this is problematic on multiple levels. In particular, in fact, perhaps even most problematic is that it's, the player has their complaint and issue with the coach. Obviously, the coach is clearly first and foremost the culprit here. He's the problem. But the fact is when people that aren't involved directly in this situation, they're supposed to be objective, like the legal counsel for the league and the commissioner of the league, Lisa Baird, when they're fired or removed from their job, it means that they probably, in some regard, have had knowledge of these allegations, and they failed to do something, or they failed to do enough in the eyes of the people that were making these complaints. And that's often where people blame. That's where they put the most blame, isn't it, on the people that are objective, and they're kind of hovering above the whole situation. Is that fair enough and well stated enough?
I think it is, and I think there's certainly blame. This is a women's league. You have a woman as a commissioner. You have a woman as a general counselor. You have a male coach, although he is very well known and probably has a lot of pedigree. And so the women's league's supposed to be protecting the women players. That's what the league's about, right? So you would think that there would be more credibility. Now, who knows what kind of pressure they're getting, and from either the owners of these teams or even sponsors, or who knows, or maybe they just minimized it because maybe this happens frequently in other teams, right? we don't know enough, right? But clearly, I was reading in an article that said that they didn't even have a mechanism for if there was a sexual harassment complaint. There wasn't a formal mechanism of how you could report that to the league until like 2 years ago.
Wow.
Right? So I mean, it's a new league, right? And it really is kind of one of these things, and you and I were talking about it, where, you know, there has to be more oversight in a league like this or any league that's new with coaches and behavior of coaches towards players, male or female, right? And then,
Absolutely.
and you and I were talking off air that when you put kind of a opposite sex coach in a league, right? So a male coach coaching a women's league, you know, some people would say, you know, we can't look at that, you know, those factors at all. But I think that complicates things. I think it makes it more difficult. I think it makes it more complicated emotionally. You and I talked about sort of the emotions tied to practicing hard, earning a spot on the roster,
Right.
playing against opponents, traveling together, long, you know, away, you know, where you're weeks away,
Right.
you know, from family and friends, and you're playing in different places, and you're trying to win, and, you know, there's a lot of emotional connections or bonds that get established, and it just makes it, I think, a lot harder to maintain the integrity in this situation where you have male coaches with a women's team, younger players.
Folks, we're talking with certified soccer coach Carlos Herrera, and we're talking about the issues of sexual abuse and sexual misconduct by Paul Riley, coach of one of the teams in the National Women's Soccer League. And Carlos, to head this conversation down a different path, there have been many, many women who have said, even publicly, both, I think, you know, moms and relatives, but also people that have a microphone in front of them, like congresswomen and senators that have said, if you put women in those authoritative positions, then you won't have these problems. And this is a clear indication that that's not going to be the case, at least not every time. And I've always stated that, or I've always thought that if you take a look, for instance, at what people have said about presidents as males, I've heard many women say, if you had a woman president, you wouldn't have near as many wars. And I always say to them, then you haven't read the history books, because when there were queens and prime ministers that were women ahead of state, they started their share of their own wars as well. So that's not always the case. And this is a really good example, too. And actually, I think this is really embarrassing for women, especially women of authority, that when they've been given this opportunity to act in an appropriate way, they didn't come through.
And you're referencing the commissioner and the general counsel.
That's right.
They had an opportunity to do something, and they didn't do enough, right? And that is definitely something that the league's gonna have to deal with. You know, to just add one more component to it, abuse, they fired or let go, resigned the coach of the Washington Spirit, Ricky Burns, because of abusive language or inappropriate language, right? And so it wasn't reference as sexual abuse, right? Just abusive, right?
That's right.
That could be anybody, right? Could be a female coach could be accused of that. And I think those are some of the things that in coaching, I think people look at more the performance of the coach and the caliber of the coach and his record of the coach, but they don't look at the integrity or the way they treat people. And sometimes that gets overlooked and minimized when it could be just as damaging to players or a team.
No doubt. Folks, you're listening to Faith is Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva, and we're in the midst of a conversation, our hit or miss of the week, with Carlos Herrera. Carlos, let's shift gears, because as always, there's a lot more to be said about such a big national story like the one you're talking about. But for time's sake, let's switch to the other hit or miss of the week, and that would be mine. And mine is a miss. So similar to yours, it's kind of the negative side of sport. And mine has to do with Ohio State quarterback Quinn Ewers, who was allowed to join the Buckeyes for his freshman year, in which should have been his senior year in high school. Now, at the outset of that, people go, well, first of all, I didn't really know that, but this is big news actually in the world of college football for this reason. He was not only the top-rated quarterback in high school supposed to be his senior year in Texas right now. But he is, in some rankings, the highest ranked high school player in the nation. So not just among QBs. So this is a big deal for Ohio State to get him. The big deal is that just before the season started, I think this happened in July, he decided to forego his senior year, this year, right now, to join Ohio State. And Carlos, you have that particular story at your fingertips, don't you? Could you read a little bit about, in particular, what the parents said about Quinn Ewers' decision to move on to Ohio State?
Yes, the article, and this is crazy because he really was rated as a junior, right? He's rated as the best player at the end of his junior year.
That's right.
He's not even finished high school, and they're looking at being able to send him to college to play early, i.e. skipping the senior year, solely so you can take advantage of the NIL, and that is the name and likeness new rule that the NCAA just allowed and established for college football players or athletes in general, any athlete, right?
That's right.
So the family kind of was pretty point blank, and I think this is solely about money, right? Their reference was, I don't think, this is a quote from the parents, I don't think we're here to fight them or question the UIL, okay? But we hold a different opinion, and we think our opinion is valid, and that's from the parents. Basically saying we think our son as a high schooler should be able to benefit from this new law so that he can make money. They don't say so he can make money, but this is really what it's about because he's had opportunities and offers for sponsorship in the six-digit figures, 100,000, maybe 200,000. Who knows if it's more from multiple different companies. And so he can't take advantage of it as a high school student. But if he's in college, he can take advantage of it.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, in the same story that I think you and I are both referencing, his parents said that he has several potential deals lined up and ones that he could not cash in on in the state of Texas because they don't allow there's no rights for an athlete to gain an advantage from their name, image, and likeness, the NIL acronym there. And it's clear that this was purely financially motivated. And okay, that's fine. We can comment about the moving to the almighty dollar and to make this decision primarily based on that. And I understand that makes sense, certainly to a certain extent. However, the reason that this is a miss for me is that this is one of those situations where the NCAA and Ohio State needs to step in. And here's what I mean. And let me start by saying and comparing it to what the NBA does for their players. For several years, it became popular. In fact, Kobe Bryant was one of the first players to do this. They could jump right from high school into the NBA. And a lot of players did this. But one of the things that the NCAA or the NBA recognized was even discussions with their teammates who were sometimes 25, 30, 35 years old, where one of their teammates was 18 years old, is that they saw that they were not emotionally ready for the NBA. They didn't say anything about physically ready. They were just not emotionally ready. Everything from getting such a huge paycheck to the demands to being on the road and the discipline that it takes to forego parties and attraction to the opposite sex and all these issues that come up with that's hard enough if they're in high school, but if they're on the road as an NBA player, the NBA recognized that, and now they have to take like a grace year before they can enter the NBA. So they basically have to have had some type of off year before they can enter the NBA. And the reason I bring that up, it's analogous to the NCAA here. Why doesn't the NCAA say, listen, this is okay, I understand you want to make money. I understand that you're even physically ready to play here at Ohio State, but let's allow physical and emotional and even spiritual development to take place in that child during their senior year. In other words, don't even give them the option to do this. And the problem is that so many people today are afraid to say the word no. They think that somehow it's a tearing up the opportunity of and giving them freedom. With the fact is that you are protecting them. That's the very thing. Freedom is supposed to be, on a certain level, is supposed to kind of enhance the individual and allow them to blossom into the person God wants them to be and so forth. But you talking about something that will inhibit this growth is send them to the NCAA or in the situation of the NBA, send them into a situation that they're not quite ready for. Carlos.
I think it's a travesty, right? I think adults should be saying no, right? And I don't blame Ohio State for saying, hey, come on over if you want to come on over.
That's right.
Like,
yeah.
Ohio State, they could care less, right? But I think it's one of these things similar to the NBA where they'll let this happen maybe for a year or two just because there are not a lot of laws and rules, and the NIL is new, and
yep.
Not everybody has thought through what all the particular implications are. But I think this will ultimately go back in a year or two or three where they will be like senior students or high school students stay, and then when you come out, you'll have that opportunity.
Absolutely, and yeah, that's well stated. In fact, that's probably going to happen. And I didn't even think of that they're just going to change their mind in a couple of years. And I'll extend my point, slightly further. Allow this kid to go to homecoming this coming weekend. Allow this kid to attend a basketball game of his high school, holding the hand of his girlfriend back in Texas. Allow this kid to go to senior prom. Just allow things that are meant to be when they are to be, and the world is going to be a little better place. And I mean that literally. I think that we're kind of we're putting our hand in there and then saying, no, stop here, but go here because we think that's going to be better for you. And in essence, this is far more bigger problem of Ohio State, but and not so much him, but definitely his parents. So you and I are in agreement on that one. Listen, buddy, as always, we run out of time before we've said everything we want to say. Listen, enjoy the rest of your day, Carlos Herrera, and thank you for being on Faith in Sport today, bud.
Lolitos. Thanks for having me on. Have a great show.
Thank you, buddy. We'll talk soon. All right, ciao.
Take care.
There you go. Carlos Herrera here on Faith in Sport. You're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio and a co-production of Radio Maria. Chris, that whole thing makes sense to you?
Yeah, the thing I would wonder about is, though, if he's skipping his senior year, what does that do with his graduation? I mean,
well, that's interesting because I could have read. There was so much more to say, but one of the things he did, he apparently only had like 1 or 2 classes left, and he, in anticipation of doing this, he took them this summer, and that is true with a lot of students that they take advanced courses or they take so many courses their sophomore and junior year that they take classes that just go toward their college credit. But he's actually going to graduate, which is not an issue. So, yeah, you're right. That was worth mentioning that he didn't actually skip a senior year and won't graduate from high school. In fact, that's the only way he could get into Ohio State. You have to graduate high school first.
Yeah, I didn't think they would say, oh, well, since you're skipping senior year, we'll just go ahead and give you your diploma before you head on your way.
Because we like you or because you're a great football player, whatever the case is. All right, listen, buddy, let's do weekend headlines and take it away with some music.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition.
It's time for Weekend Headlines with Dr. John Acquaviva on Faith and Sport.
Here we go, folks. Today's headlines are, in the PGA, the Sanderson Farms Championship in Mississippi was won by American Sam Burns, who shot 22 under par. He takes away under power. In fact, he had a lot of power in his stroke. We know that, but he was 22 shots under par. He takes away $1.2 million for hitting a little white ball. Isn't that amazing? The tour's next stop is the Shriners Hospital for Children Open in Las Vegas. In the NFL, Tom Brady visited New England for the first time since he left the Patriots 2 years ago and beat his former team and coach, Bill Belichick. It was the most anticipated game of the young season. Tampa Bay won 19-17. Did you watch that last night?
No, I didn't get to see that, but I heard it was a good game.
Yeah, it was the game, and it was close the whole way. To tell the truth, I thought Brady and Tampa Bay, because I think they're a superior team, was going to crush them, but it was really close. In fact, at one point, they had to come from behind. Major League Baseball. The regular season ended over the weekend, and wild card teams are set for a one-game knockout format to see who moves on. New York plays the Red Sox, and the Dodgers play the Cardinals. Teams already in the American League are Tampa Bay Rays, Chicago White Sox, and the Astros. And in the National League, the Brewers, San Francisco Giants, and Chris's Atlanta Braves.
That's right. Go Braves.
Brother, they have a tough road ahead.
They do.
But they're a solid team, and this is the 4th year in a row they won that division. And they're solid, and they could easily take the National League pennant. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
I really hope to see him go all the way.
That's right. And Catholic manager Brian Snitker heads the Atlanta Braves, so we're going to be pushing for him here at Carolina Catholic Radio.
That's right. Let's see what happens. Maybe we can get him on Faith in Sport.
Absolutely. I've been promised by a priest that I know is friends with Snitker that he's going to get us on, so I'm going to still rely on him to do that. Lastly, folks, at NCAA football, huge games this past weekend include top 10 matchups. Notre Dame losing to Cincinnati, and UGA, number 2 UGA, crushing Arkansas. And you heard it here first, folks. University of Georgia will be your national champ come January. So we're going to play this come January when I say that. They are the best team in the nation. So there you have it, folks. Sports news that may or may not change your life. Folks, listen, after the break, we have Tom and Mary Van Buskirk, founders and directors of Positive Sport Coaching. They're going to join us. But before we get in the conversation with them right after the break, I'm going to talk about just exactly how difficult it is to make sports predictions. And in this case, the world of college football. Chris, take it away, and then we'll go to break.
Unless you're an expert like yourself. You are listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also streaming and broadcasting across Radio Maria, so all of you stay tuned. We've got more Faith and Sport coming up next. And when you go on carolinacatholicradio.org or on the app, make sure to hit the Donate Now button so you can help us to keep great Catholic radio on the air like Faith and Sport on Carolina Catholic Radio, Charlotte.
Check out the new Carolina Catholic Radio mobile app with prayers, learning, news, and more. Be sure to download it today.
Teachers that care, professors that care about you. Just an awesome experience all around.
There's peace here. There's encouragement here.
Faculty, everybody that works here, they really set you up for success.
I don't think I have ever felt as loved and as supported and as encouraged as I have at the Abbey.
There's something here that's underlying and intrinsic. There's like a spirit of love and community. And I think the spirit is God's presence here.
Belmont Abbey College, a world away, but close to home. Visit us at belmontabbeycollege.edu.
Calling all Catholic men of the Carolinas, this is Jason Murphy for the Carolina Catholic Media. 30 in 30, the road to a comeback. The men of the Charlotte Diocese are uniting to spread the truth of Jesus Christ and our Catholic faith on local radio airwaves. This month, we are kicking off a pledge drive to get our local Carolina Catholic radio station, AM 1270, back on the air. In these extraordinary times, we believe it is more important now than ever to evangelize on public airwaves to the tens of thousands of souls who travel on the highways around metropolitan Charlotte and beyond. So how do we accomplish this? Here's the math. Phase 1, 30 days. If 1,000 men come forward and donate $1 a day for 1 month, we can put Carolina Catholic Radio back on the air. 1,000 men times $30 donation equals $30,000. Phase 2, 90 days. Help Carolina Catholic Radio get back in the black. If 1,000 men make a $20 monthly donation from October to December, it will pay off all debts by the end of the year. Phase 3, ongoing. If 1,000 men commit to an ongoing $10 monthly donation in 2022, it will allow us to meet projected monthly expenses throughout the year. Can we count on you to be a part of this comeback? Please be sure to download the Carolina Catholic smartphone app from your Apple Store or Google Play to experience all the great local content available through Carolina Catholic Media. This vitally important and historic comeback is sponsored by Catholic Men of the Carolinas, the Knights of Columbus, and the Fraternity of St. Joseph's Men's Group. If not us, who? If not now, when? For the Carolina Catholic Media Network, this has been Jason Murphy. God bless, and Esto Vir.
We are back for the second half of Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across the Radio Maria Radio Network. So happy and glad to have all of you tuned in today for this edition of Faith and Sport. I'm Chris, the producer of the show. And once again, here he is, the host of Faith and Sport each week. Once again, the one, the only, the incomparable Dr. John Acquaviva.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the show. Dr. John Acquaviva here. I teach exercise science at Wingate University. Once a week I come down here and we talk about faith and sport. Sometimes more faith than sport, sometimes more faith than sport. But either way, we try to work both of those in. So if this show's topic is an interest to you, be sure to pass it along to people so we can increase listenership and exposure to Carolina Catholic Radio. But also, I want to encourage our listeners, both Carolina Catholic Radio people and Radio Maria people, to extend an invite to contact me so we can get various guests on the show. So, for instance, people that are referees, that are coaches, that are athletes within your community. They work as administrators within sport. And I'm talking about primarily like high school or even little league sports, people that are good members of your community, and they exemplify what it should be to be in that position, to be a good moral agent as well as do their job well. So if there's something or somebody that you think would be a good guest on the show, don't hesitate to contact me at john@faithandsportradio.com. So again, that's john@faithandsport, that's A-N-D in there, faithandsportradio.com. Listen, Tom and Marianne Van Buskirk are on the line. They're going to join us here in a minute. They are the founders and the directors of Positive Sport Coaching website and organization, and they're going to join us in a minute. But one of the things I mentioned before the break, I wanted to talk about this because I think the world of sport is ultimately very humbling. Chris, I think this is going to be fascinating. Last week when we saw our friend Ed Billick, he passed along to me a recent Sports Illustrated issue that came out just before the two football seasons began, the NFL and the NCAA. And one of them said, this is our top 20 teams in NCAA football. Now, remember, this is just before it started, right as the season got underway.
Right, that was the special gambling issue.
That's right, we were talking about this last week. But another part of that talked about the top 20 programs, and I want to point out just how many teams of their top 20 are no longer in the top 25.
Wow.
So they're here in this top 20, but they're actually no longer in the actual AP or coaches polls of the top 25 teams in the nation. Number 4, Clemson, out of the polls. Iowa State, out. Wisconsin, out. USC, Notre Dame. No, they're in, sorry. USC, Washington, both out. North Carolina, Indiana, Miami, all out.
Wow.
Of the 20 teams, brother, no exaggeration, of the 20 teams, 9 of them aren't even in the top 25.
Wow.
I know, so it shows how humbling this is to try to predict this. And by the way, on the very front it says, our prediction for the college football championship, Alabama over Clemson. Right? Clemson's not even in the top 25, so it's probably not going to happen, Clemson fans. We're going to have to do what we as Michigan fans, NC State fans, everybody else says every year, you have to wait till next year.
That's right.
Anyway, I thought that was amazing. I thought it was interesting. And it just goes to show that sports predictions are some of the highest of any. I mean, it's probably not as tough to pick stocks and bonds. Jeez, oh, Pete. All right, listen, let's move on. I told you that, folks, that we would have Tom and Marianne Van Buskirk here. They have done great work over the, literally, not just years, but over the decades, and to try to turn coaching a more positive experience, both for the people doing it and the people that they coach. They're on the line with us now. Tom and Marianne, welcome to Faith in Sport.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
This is great. You guys are here. Thank you very much. Now, Tom, you were on the program, of course, a few months ago. We took most of the summer off. We had a new baby in our family, and that was part of the reason why I took some time off. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And I remember, as I think it was even before you and I talked, I said, listen, this is going to be a long conversation. Please consider coming on for part 2. But because it's been so long since we had part 1, why don't you take us through, Tom, what is Positive Sport Coaching, and why did you and Marianne start this organization?
Positive Sport Coaching is trying to teach the coaches of all sports, all ages, and the parents, sport parents, the value of sport. I had a coach when I was very young that, quite frankly, taught me life lessons, and that's what we try to teach the coaches. We go through all the fundamentals and art of teaching and coaching and how to be a good coach. But basically, what we want to do is we realize that coaches have a very dedicated audience, and they need to do the right thing and teach these kids life lessons: how to win, how to lose, how to play hard, how to have compassion, and how to be competitive.
Absolutely,
because it's going to follow through life.
Absolutely. And Marianne, what could you add to that as far as what was part of your vision independently to get this started with Tom?
Well, I think because we were parents of young athletes,
yep,
and we've been involved in sports ourselves, we just saw how things were changing, and the philosophy became more winning at all costs, which would mean not playing at your bent, even though you were ahead in the score.
Yeah.
Coaches yelling, parents yelling. I was probably a yelling parent myself before I figured it out.
Yep.
But we just saw some of the negativity that was beginning to really surface. And as a result of that, we wanted to do something positive to combat the negativity that was happening in youth sports particularly. And then it grew and bourgeoned to high school sports and parents and all kinds of things.
And let's hear from both of you guys on this. What impact do you feel that you've directly made into the world of coaching? Like, what's something in particular, like a characteristic or something that is definitive about sport itself that you folks have made the biggest headway in?
I believe that we are getting the attention of administrators, educators, and coaches and parents that the value of sport and how it should be used. That's one of the main ideals that we try to get across to the public.
And
go
ahead, Tom.
One of the key things that we try to do is that good coaches burn out early. So we try to give good coaches tools not to burn out and to keep on coaching.
And what are some of those tools, Marianne, that you try to give the coaches so them being positive, having positive influences on players, especially at such a young age? What do you do to try to keep them in the field?
Well, one of the things, we offered different components of our teaching, if you want to put it that way, working with coaches, and it included sports philosophy, really putting your priorities in place, what's really important, the development of your kids, or winning.
That's right.
So when coaches could really identify what really is important, and not just to think about the winning piece, but how they're going to develop their athletes and how you can create teamwork, that was one area in sport philosophy. The other one is sport management, how they set their practices together,
Yeah.
start on time, end on time. To me, that's just a sign of respect, both to your players and to the parents who would drop them off and pick them up. So we would encourage that so they'd have a good relationship in terms of their management style with their parents and their players, how they're organized. Sports psychology certainly came into that, how important what they model, how they shape behavior, and you don't do yelling. That's not how you're going to get the best out of your players.
That's right.
Although some players like to be yelled at.
That's right.
So we worked at all those different components to really try to ensure that the coaches don't get burned out and they stay in coaching, because as Tom said, there's such a need for positive role models, and coaches are hugely effective in that way.
Yeah, there's no doubt. In fact, I've done some research about, for instance, the nutritional planning for athletes at the college level, and the people that they turn to more are not their teachers that may even teach on nutrition, and not the registered dietitian that may be assigned, but the players even at the college level turn toward their coaches, even when it's obvious that their coach is not equipped to do anything along those lines. And it really shows that at all ages, people, especially children, they look to their coach for a lot of answers. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing, as you guys have realized, because if the coach is a positive influence, then you want that child to not just be influenced by that person, but you're okay with them spending time with that individual in a team setting. But of course, the opposite can be true. And let me ask you guys the following. What is the single biggest, if you could remove this aspect, whatever aspect it is, from the world of youth sport, what would it be? And for instance, just to get you along the lines, because you guys' minds could be going a lot there, because we didn't talk about this off air, but would it be that the umpiring should be better, or there should be some type of removal from games when parents say something inappropriate, or there should be less practice time and so forth? What's the big thing you would like to kind of remove from the world of youth sport?
So I don't know if there's one thing. I think it sort of depends on the setting and the situation. I think getting good referees and umpires is getting to be more and more of an issue. We know that even with our grandson had a soccer match on Saturday, and the younger people used to be the refs for the younger kids, but they've gotten so much animosity at times for a bad call that there's a lot of people don't even want to ump or ref, but then there are some that do, and they're not very good, and then there's some that are excellent. So you could say that's one aspect.
Yep.
I think it varies what one thing it could be. Sometimes Tom would joke with people saying the best team to coach is a team of orphans, because you don't have the parents. because the parents can be they can be so wonderful and so supportive of their kids, but you see them put such pressure on their kids, and our kids today are under tremendous pressure. Their teachers put pressure on them, their coaches can put pressure on them, their parents put tremendous pressure on them, their peers put pressure on them. So I think if I could have one thing, if people would kind of chill out a bit more and not put such pressure on the kids and the athletes, that would be one of the best things we could do, and just let them have fun. They are playing a game.
That's right.
I think something that we can improve on, too, is that I believe that kids should play different sports, not just one sport their whole growing up.
I love it.
A couple things about that is, number one, they have prone sports injuries that are related to that. As an example, a volleyball player is going to have rotator cuff problems and so on.
Yep.
I like that kids playing different sports.
Yeah,
that way they don't burn out and they develop better skills.
That's right.
And I just really like that. Another aspect that we like to teach is the 24-hour rule.
Which is?
That is, if you say something, or if you want to say something to me and you don't like how I coached or made a play or a call, let's talk about it 24 hours after the game, because I'm going to say something stupid and you're going to say something stupid and we're going to regret it.
I like
Nowadays,
that.
coaches actually the problem they have now is they look at their text mail.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right during the game, and my son-in-law's a coach. And I said, just put that phone in the car and leave it there for a while.
Oh yeah. Folks, we're talking with Tom and Marianne Van Buskirk. They're the founders of Positive Sport Coaching. You can check more about them at positivesportcoaching.org. Marianne, Tom, I don't think, Tom, in our first conversation, we talked about this. And even if we did, I think it's worth bringing up. There is a website, and I think it's actually through a Facebook page called Offside. And the purpose of this website or this particular Facebook page is to bring to light parents' poor behavior and to have to upload videotape or, video taken by phone. And this gentleman who was a youth soccer coach got so frustrated and he's so upset with how people have treated him that he basically wants to try to stop this behavior through shaming them. And I'm wondering, is there anything positive that could come out of this site, Offside?
I like it. I think if parents see how they are with their kids.
Yeah.
We have a segment in our coaching clinics that we show what kids think about their parents. And it's sad. I mean, they're in tears. They're saying, my dad never came to the games, or I wish my dad did come to the game,
Yeah.
My mom. So hearing it from the kids is really, really heartbreaking. But I like his idea. Shaming, I've seen it. I tell you, we had one parent that was so bad that we would purposely make him sit behind the opponent's bench so they would get the tea.
Marianne, what's your thought about the site Offside?
Well, as someone who does counseling with families, I'm not for shaming anybody, but I think trying to correct negative or bad behavior is something we're all called to do at times. It's how we do it.
That's right.
And I'm not a strong proponent of Facebook. To me, it removes a lot of the responsibility from the person who shows things or says things. So shaming would not be the direction I would go.
Got it. I understand you guys make two different points from two different sides, but one of the things about this is, and I have a feeling this particular coach, I've actually tried to get a hold of him to have him to be a guest on the show because I thought it'd be a great conversation. But one of the things that I bet he would say is, this isn't ideal. I have just run out of ideas on how to get parents to behave better. And if shaming them helps, and this makes youth sport a better place to be and a thing that's more positive to be involved in, he would probably say, I'm all for it. But it'd be really interesting. But on the other hand, he may say, no, I'm all for shaming and, whatever gets people to change. But I do understand from both standpoints what you guys are saying. And to tell the truth, I'm right in between there. I'm not sure this is the answer, but I know it's like most things, and that is people think, I just want to do something to try to make change.
And I hear you, John. And the problem that I see is that the people that are yelling and screaming will never ever get it.
Yeah, they may not. They may not, even with all the videos out there in the world and without all the offsides, sites in the world. Tom, Marianne Van Buskirk, let me end with this. How can our listeners support Positive Sport Coaching and positivesportcoaching.org? What can they do to directly help you guys?
Well, I'm kind of like the golden rule. I just think you need to be, that's why we have the positive in that. Positive begets positive, negative begets negative. And we have such negativity going on across our culture, but we're talking about sports right now, specifically in sports. And I just think people should catch people doing good things.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Catch them doing the bad things. Half the time they're oblivious to it. But what you focus on, you give power to. And if you focus on positive things, like parents saying, "Did you have fun today, honey?"
Yeah.
I loved how you helped that kid off when he fell down. That really made me proud of you, honey. To say to a coach, I just so appreciated how you took some time with my kid the other day at practice and helped her on her dribbling. Thank you, Coach. That was really wonderful.
Very good.
Thank you, parents, for being so supportive of me and helping me pick up the balls or put the, giving positive messages. I really think our world is so focused on negativity that that's something we truly have to work on. And coaches, parents, each one of us takes that responsibility. We have the ability to respond in a positive way. I think we can make a real big difference in youth sports.
I think how they can help us get the word out.
Yeah.
We do clinics for any type of organization or school. We do have online programs. I'm not a big fan of them. I mean, our programs are good, but they just don't get the personal passion that we have for sport and teaching properly. You also get more questions that people are afraid to ask, which you'll never get on an online program.
That's right. And
that's
so
how they can help us out.
Very good. I like the way you ended your part of the conversation, Marianne. And Tom, thank you for reminding our listening audience. Go to positivesportcoaching.org and contact Tom Van Buskirk on getting some online or even a live coaching clinic so you can make your community, your league, a better place for everybody to be involved with. Folks, thank you very much for making youth sports a better place for everybody that's involved in it. Thank you for being on Faith in Sport, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having us, and best of luck with your little baby.
Yeah, God bless.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Well, there you go, folks. Tom and Marianne Van Buskirk. Check out positivecoaching.org. Certainly some of the folks doing the good work to make the world of youth sport a better place. We have a couple minutes remaining, but Chris, we promise. We got to deliver, brother. We promise that we do the quick Q&A with Dr. Ray.
That's
so
right.
What's the question, man?
The question is, it's a hard one, Ohtani versus Guerrero for MLB MVP. Who do you pick?
Who do I like? So listen, this is referring to, actually, this has been the conversation in the Major League Baseball for the last several weeks, and that is Vladimir Guerrero, first baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays, and then Shohei Ohtani, who pitches and plays mainly DH for the LA Angels. And there's a big discussion because it's really them neck and neck for the AL MVP, right? But here's the issue. Vladimir Guerrero, for instance, has 50 more hits once the season ended this past weekend than Ohtani. He had 11 more RBIs. He struck out about 30% less. His batting average was 50 points higher than Ohtani's.
Wow.
So it sounds like it's a close case. But the difference is Ohtani pitches, and he won 10 games for a mediocre, maybe even sometimes bad Angels team. And so most people are saying, I think it should go to Guerrero, but it's going to go to Ohtani because he actually did really well in both. So that's what's going to happen is my prediction, but I would not be bothered at all if Vladimir Guerrero won that. Listen, brother, before you take us away with it, concluding music, I want to end, as I normally do, with a quote from one of our popes. This one comes from John Paul II, who said, "Give thanks to God for the gift of sport in which the human person exercises his body, intellect, and will, recognizing these abilities as so many gifts of his creator." Before we go, I'm going to give special thanks to you, Chris Pressler, for engineering this show, to Carlos Herrera in the first half of the show. Second half of the show, we had Tom and Marianne Van Buskirk from positivecoaching.org. Please join us next time. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria for Faith in Sport.
Hey, those are my boys. We stick together.
You've been listening to Faith in Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org, and also streaming at the Carolina Catholic Radio app, also broadcasting across the Radio Maria Radio Network. We want to thank you for tuning in for Faith in Sport this week and invite you to tune again next week for more Faith in Sport right here. And when you go online to carolinacatholicradio.org to listen or on the Carolina Catholic Radio app, make sure to hit that Donate Now button to help keep Carolina Catholic Radio and great programming like this on the air.